If you want to be a part of the community, buy some merchandise, check it out down below. I'll make a few bucks off of that. If you want to support the channel and make these videos possible, donate at the links in the top of the description, subscribe and like this video, and let's get into it. Welcome back to the Roadside Rescue YouTube channel. I'm Ernest, and today we've got a 2016 Hyundai Tucson here that I just did a pre-purchase inspection on about a week ago. And the customer bought it, but there's a sound in the front tire, and that's the tie rod end. So we're gonna go ahead and replace that on the driver's side, and we're just set up here in the shade in the afternoon. Okay, so here we are. I've just gone ahead and jacked the car up. I've got it on a jack stand as well, and I've got the tire turned all the way to the right so that the outer tie rod end is just on this side here. You could probably do it with the tire on, but I'm not gonna even try that. I'll just take this tire off real quick and we'll loosen that up and see how easy it comes out. Sometimes they come out pretty easy, and sometimes you gotta use a few different special tools to get them, so hopefully it just comes out easy. And then I'll show you my trick for getting tie rods back on in pretty much the exact same spot, so stay tuned. All right, so we're just gonna go ahead and take this tire off real quick. And I'll show you the issue here. This has some play in the, actually I probably could have just shook the tire walls on there. It obviously needs a bit of force because you can only get it to do it whenever you're going down a bumpy road, or when you shake the steering wheel left and right. So obviously that power steering rack has a lot of force. I believe this one's electronic. So obviously I'm not able to get it to make any sound by hand there. It's just a bit too stiff for that. The power steering rack can do it, a bumpy road can do it. And here's my trick for changing the tie rod real quick, a tie rod end, and here we go. So on this nut here, there's usually either a castle nut with a cotter pin or some sort of retaining pin, or some sort of, I don't know if I've seen one on a tie rod end, but the nuts that you can actually fold in and crimp. Some sort of locking mechanism on the nuts up here. Actually now they have those synthetic locking nuts that I've seen come in new parts, so that's not uncommon. Regardless, take that off. And yeah, I'm gonna guess 14. Well, it's like super quiet this afternoon, but I think they said it was gonna flood. Okay, let's see. So maybe it's just the calm before the storm. But knowing Utah, probably won't storm at all. Yeah, 14. All right, let's get that off real quick and hold on to that nut. See if I can get a good breaking it loose under here. Oh yeah, that's pretty easy. That's why they've got that lock in them, the pin. Some old cars though, with a little bit of rust, get real hard to take off. And normally you don't push on a wrench, that's how you bust your knuckles. You don't have good stopping force. If you pull, then all you have to do is stop your arms. You can't go through your chest, and it's not as likely to bust a knuckle. So I was just pushing it, not even expecting it to go quite that hard yet, just giving it a little test before I kicked it or something, but it went. Okay. Okay, so here's my foolproof method for getting all right, let me say that again. All right, so here's my foolproof method. Okay, all right, one more time. All right, so here's my foolproof method for getting these tie rod ends out pretty easily if they're not going to require a ton of force, or a pickle fork or something like that, which is like a barbecue looking skewer 2-pronged fork you'd put under there, and it's wedged, so when you hammer it in, the force splits this open and it'll pop that out when they get rusty. Hopefully it's not too bad from the sign of breaking that loose, but I'll leave the socket on there so I don't actually mess up any of the threads or anything. So I'll thread it all the way back down, and then I'll hit the socket itself, and that'll just knock this front sheath around of this nut here, and it's way less likely to bust threads out. And if you do, you could probably just yank it off anyways, but it's not gonna. My problem is when I smack the top of the nuts like people recommend on the internet, they'll flare out and then you won't be able to remove them, and so you end up cutting them off or doing something weird, and it just creates a hassle. So here's your good method for not doing that. See if I can get some sort of angle on it here. Okay, yeah, hopefully that doesn't fall. Okay, a few more hits and I don't think this is gonna go, so I'll grab a pickle fork. There it goes. Nice, that makes it easy. Sometimes it just takes a lot of soft hits, and sometimes it takes a lot of big hits, I guess, but it usually never comes off too easy. That was right at where I was gonna maybe try one more round a little bit harder and then go ahead and grab the pickle fork. So nice and easy not to deal with that. Oh, I said hold on to the nut. This is why, and that's why it's easier to, well, you could do this before or after. I usually just end up going to that first because it's the first thing I see. But here you can see there's been an alignment at some point. We're gonna go ahead and break this nut off here. This is like a lock nut that's used to screw against the outer tie rod here to keep either from twisting, as this has threads way deeper than you need to go, so that way you can adjust your alignment over the life of the vehicle. Okay, so at this point I have two recommendations, one personal and one that's just through the grapevine. Ever since I've gotten big wrenches like this for all the different sizes these nuts come in, typically like 22, 27. This has made doing any sort of work on this particular lock nut on the outer tie rod a lot easier. But I've also heard people say that a lineman's wrench, which is like a pipe wrench, I'll put a picture of it on the screen here, and a link in the description to all the tools I use with that one included, so you could check one out, the one I would recommend. But that particular wrench, because it's good at just doing everything, including adjusting the inner tie rod here for an alignment. But regardless, I don't really do alignment, so I don't have that tool. But I'll put a good brand one in the bottom there in that description. And like I said, if you don't do alignments like I do, being a DIY guy, if you work in an alignment shop, I guess that's info for you. But if not, these are what I love to use for breaking these free. Because a lot of times all it takes is just a little tap by hand, because they're so long, they've got so much torque on them there. That's all it takes. So at that point, I know I've broken that free. I can go ahead and give it a few more twists if I like, just to know that I've got that broke free. I'll go ahead and tighten it back down just until it touches, like try and just barely get it to touch. Or in this case, you could mark this one, and we know that this blue line was on top with that blue line. So since we have that mark, I'll just go ahead and leave that a little more untwisted to make this next step easier, which is to just remove this and then to unscrew this outer tie rod end. And sometimes you can do it by hand if you live in a nice dry state. Sorry, Rust Belt mechanics. So we'll take that off, and then when we put the new one on, we'll twist it all the way down until that comes back around and that blue line tightens up at the very top with the new tie rod. They're not always identical lengths, and you're still supposed to get in alignment, but this will keep you from peeling your tires on the way to the alignment shop. And that's that sound of that worn out outer tie rod in there now that it's free, that you could hear. So clacking a lot while driving, and we've got the new part. Okay, so this blue cover here is just the grease cover, just a rubber shield there to keep the grease in, but some of them will come with a big plastic cover over the top. If you ever need to get that off and this gets bent during shipping just in one direction or the other, or just to line it up, an easy way to do that is just stick it in the hole before you put it on and get it lined up. This one's just blue though, nice and bright, but that'll go on as an exact replacement there. And that's just a little trick for if you ever need to bend these. Sometimes they're really hard to do by hand, sometimes they're just a little hard but doable, like this one. But sometimes they're really hard, so this will get those really stubborn ones in the right place. We've left that nut back there half a turn off, so if I go and touch that and can't turn this anymore, I'll probably come a quarter of a turn off of that and then meet them up together, hopefully in the middle, and then this will be fine to drive to an alignment shop, but it will still need an alignment. I have seen DIY alignments though from people I've had to go in do a roadside rescue on, where their car was just squealing as it drove down the road because they had just messed up the toe so bad doing the DIY alignment. So that's top, and that's getting pretty close. That's probably where it was at. I'm gonna go ahead and just lock that into place here with this nut. And in this case, it's getting replaced with a castle nut and a cotter pin.
And if you'll notice here, this tie rod is way longer than the original one. I thought that this was the right size. I triple checked part numbers, and I actually ordered a different one than I originally was gonna get, thinking that I solved the problem. Turns out this one's way too long. I ordered this one twice and just went back to the dealership and got an OEM part. But you'll see me putting this one on, explaining how to do that, and it's not gonna make those tires line up at all. So I'm gonna have to put the old one back on, and I'll show you at the end the update with the new part on.
There. I don't really like to back them off, and it's hard to tell because an impact sounds loud regardless, but I just barely had the trigger pulled there, so it was spinning around really slow. This is about 28 foot-pounds there. It may be a little much considering how soft that other one was to take off, but I didn't look at the torque value. That's certainly not over torquing it. In fact, I hate saying numbers like that because somebody's going to argue, hey man, let's just forget that. I'll just go back to it wasn't pulling the trigger very hard. And so it's always hard to tell with an impact, but that trigger was barely pulled down on that. It wasn't really tightening anything down hard at all, so that's why I came there at the end and just felt how tight it was and lined up one of this, called a castle nut, looks like a castle on chess. One of these castle cutouts with the cutout going straight through the stud there, so I can stick a pin through right here. And I like to go through the back if I can because it's easier to unbend them. All you need to do then is unbend. That's how you change an inner tie rod. Pretty nice. That trigger was barely pulled down on that. It wasn't really tightening anything down hard at all, so that's why I came there at the end and just felt how tight it was and lined up one of this, called a castle nut, looks like a castle on chess. One of these castle cutouts with the cutout going straight through the stud there, so I can stick a pin through right here. And I like to go through the back if I can because it's easier to unbend them. All you need to do then is unbend. That's how you change an inner tie rod. Pretty nice. And last but not least, I'll get the tire put back on, get the jack stand out, and the jack's under there for a kind of a second safety. Just barely touching in case something happens, just there, but not really holding any weight. And then I'll that'll be a job well done. We'll be done. Go. Job well done. Thanks. All right, so I got this fixed. I ended up just having to get the part from the dealership. I ordered that for a second time from the parts store, and it was the wrong size. I just brought the old one and checked, but that other one was about this long itself, so the nut was way back here, or the tire was just about this crooked when I was trying to go straight with the other tire. So this is all better. Driving straight now, you can see this tire is kicked off to the side, but this one is as well now. That's a job well done. If you want to support the channel, donate at the links in the description. Subscribe, give this video a like. Check out some merchandise down below. However, I only make a few bucks off the merchandise, so if you want to be a part of the channel community, check that out. But if you want to support the channel, consider donating, and I'll see you on the next episode.